Hi there, Matt Ellington here. It's Monday the 12th of December. This is update number 12. 3 links on the screen, one link to the videos, one link to the live interactive report, which is updated daily, and also the last link there is if you'd like to learn how to build these reports using Power BI. Okay, let's jump over. There's some interesting data to have a look at today. Okay, so here we are on the main page that I've been tracking now for multiple weeks. So just going back over the upper stream information. So Wackle Junction is still holding out pretty high levels of water flow actually. So the peak was 167. If we sort of go back, I think it was, so here it is around here, 13th of November. So about a month ago. So we've had sort of 30 days of water at not quite the peak, 156 at the moment. It's just, you can see it's just come off a little bit in the last few days, but we've had 30 days of this almost peak water flow coming out of Wackhill Junction. And then add to that the 53 gigalitres a day, which is coming out of the Murrumbidgee. Also, this is peaked, if we go back now, this one peaked probably about 11 or 12 days ago. So a lot of water still coming out at 51 gigs per day. Those two numbers combined peaking at 220, but because of the timing, we're a little bit off. But look here at Lock 15, we're at 217 peak. And so almost all of that peak water from upstream has been additive and it's coming together. So almost everything's come down. If you have a look at how long this is peaking, 216, you can see that it actually peaked back here at the start of December. Remember, it came off. I said I thought it would go up. It looks to me like it might have peaked again. So I'm guessing the number that we're going to be tracking is about 210 coming out of Lock 15. So then we've got this consistent 17 gig coming out of the Darling. So 17 plus 210, 227. The combined numbers are a bit higher. If we switch this over to Lock 15, we say 234, take a little bit off of that. So it looks to me like the peak is going to be about 225. In fact, it's already above 225. So yeah, so pretty close to 230. It might even get up to, well, I reckon 230. So we must be pretty close to the peak at Lock 10 right now. So keep an eye on that number. It might go up a little bit, but it's important because if this is the peak around 10th or 11th, I'm going to show you in a minute how long it takes for that water to come downstream. Okay, so with that, we're going to assume that Lock 10 has either peaked or it's so close to being the peak, it doesn't really matter. Lock 10 is at Wentworth, in case you're not aware of that. All right, so let's have a look at Lake Victoria. This is the last opportunity to get water out of the system before it comes into South Australia. And I sort of mentioned earlier that they'd stopped taking water in. So back here, they had stopped taking water into the system. Then they started taking water in again. It seems that they stopped again. So you can see 2 in, 2 out. So they're holding about 100 gigalitres of capacity. Now, keep in mind that Wackle Junction has peaked or been close to peak for about 30 days. So if you assume that the peak could be 30 days or so, they can only take 3 gigalitres a day off the top of the peak. And so really it's not going to have a material difference, I wouldn't have thought, but I guess there might be someone who would benefit from that. All right, so around 230 a day coming down perhaps for about 30 days. Then of course the next interesting thing is, well, how does that flow to SA and then how does it flow to Lock 1? So if you look here, Lock 1, so this Blanchetown, is 130 gigalitres a day. That's right at the moment. Now, if I go back to 93, I now believe that this number actually might be incorrect. If you look here, flow to SA in 74 was 183. I know that Ashak went under about halfway in about 74. I don't think there's any doubt we're going to get that number there. In fact, I would be surprised if we don't get significantly more than that. We're already at 162. It still hasn't made its way down. Let's just have a look at a couple of photos. So Dave and Josh were up there on the weekend. So this is our shack. This is my jet ski pontoon, which is almost about to pop off. We do have it tied up to this tree over here, but you can see we've just got a little bit of dry ground. In fact, this is the highest point at Big Bend. The people that built our shack selected the highest point. But if we have a look at, move across here and have a look at some of the other photos. So this is Paul and Lee next to us. The bottom section has already gone down. I don't have all the photos. This is Shack 1, I believe, and you can see that these ones down here are well and truly under. But if I come back to this point here, the point I'm making is that we've got another maybe 300 or 400 mil before the shack goes under, and that's with water coming into lock 1 at 130, and at lock 10 we've got 230. So there's another 100 gigaliters per day to add to what we've got at the moment. So if we don't exceed 183, I'll be absolutely shocked. All right, so then the next interesting thing will be, what is the timing? So if we assume that lock 10 is currently peaked, how long for that water to peak at this flow to SA point, and then how long for that to peak at lock 1 and then ultimately down at Swan Reach. So let's go and have a look at this. I've got a new chart which I've produced for today, and this is one of those charts showing the delays, and at the moment these three lines are just the raw data. So the dark blue line here is the flow into lock 10. As I say, maybe it's peaked, pretty close to peak. Then downstream, of course, it hasn't peaked yet because the water's got to come down to flow to SA, and then it's got to come down to lock 1. So if we can put some delay on this, I'm going to pick a delay. So I'm just basically going to move this light blue line across to the left, saying, well, how many days has it been since the water left lock 10 before it gets to SA? So I can sort of move this over. All I can really do is eyeball it. From what I've seen in previous years, it really just does depend on how wet the ground is, how fast the surge is, all those sorts of things. But to me, so you look here, so if I try and line up this light blue back here, I can sort of make it line up. I've got to go way back here, whereas then this one seems to surge a little bit. So it's a bit hard to say, but I'm sort of calling it about here. So about 10 days from the peak at lock 10 before it peaks into SA. So it's now the 12th. So that would suggest peak flow into SA about the 22nd of December or thereabouts. But then how long before it gets down to lock 1? So I'm going to do the same thing. Now this is a delay coming from lock 10, not a delay coming from flow to SA. And you see if I move this way over, you can see it's sort of more like 26, 28 days. So to me, it looks like it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks after the peak at lock 10 before we have the peak at lock 1, which is Blanchetown. So I don't think we're going to see the peak flow at Big Bend until basically the new year. So January 1st, give or take. And if you look at the pattern here, there's nothing in this chart that says to me anything other than we are going to get all that water, 230 gig. If there is one saving light, it would be this year, the fact that this has come off. But that could be because of them starting to take some water into Lake Victoria. It could be the shape of the backwaters. It's really hard to say. But you can see that there actually is a similar shape here. So this could have been when one of those peaks and then went down and then started going up again. So to me, every single sign on this chart says that we are getting 220 to 230 gigaliters a day coming past Big Bend. And so I can't see how we're not going to be at least halfway under, maybe worse than 74 based on this data. I have made a slight change to this 2022 view page. I have put the levels. I typically have been talking about flow rates in all of these videos, but I have added the levels here. I did get notification yesterday to say that the main street in Swan Reach went under yesterday. 8 o'clock in the morning it was dry, and then shortly thereafter basically it went under. So down by the ferry, down by the takeaway down there, the bowling club is under, the caravan park is under, and so on. But look how quickly this water level has gone up at lock 1, and then how quickly Swan Reach is following. And keep in mind, I reckon there's another 100 gigalitres of water to come. So that's the bad news. That's the way it is. I'll give you an update in some stage in the future. The next important thing will be to see and confirm how long after the peak in Lot 10 does this peak in SA come, and is the peak a similar flow? Once we know that, we can pretty much guarantee what's going to happen from here. So that's all for this week. Check back again. I'll give you an update when I have something else to share.